Dust lingered heavy in the Carolina air, glowing beneath the slanted light of late afternoon. The Fort Bragg range throbbed with sound rifle bolts, snapping steel targets ringing. The restless chatter of recruits who hadn't yet learned the value of silence. Through it all walked Sergeant Leah Monroe. She was lean, composed, her hood pulled low to shield her eyes from the glare. Just above her collar, a thin arc of black ink curved along her neck small. Precise numbers etched into skin dot coordinates. The murmurs began before she reached the firing line. Bet it's her ex's house. One recruit whispered, or her nail salon, another joked. Loud enough to draw laughter, even a few instructors smirked behind their sunglasses. The kind of offhand disrespect that fades quickly, but cuts deep. Monroe didn't respond. She adjusted her sling, brushed sand from her sleeve, and kept moving. Reflected in her mirrored lenses, the range stretched endlessly. Targets lined up like silent figures, awaiting judgment. Her gaze never wavered. No anger. Only the calm of someone long tested, far from home, who already knew exactly who she was. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Military and Veteran Stories so you never miss these true stories of courage. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Sergeant Leah Monroe didn't look like the kind of legend whispered about in bars or briefing rooms. She looked like a worn instructor facing another long day on the range. Her uniform matched everyone else's faded green, seams softened by sand. In time, what set her apart was posture and presence. She carried herself with the balance of someone who had borne heavy loads over unforgiving miles. Her eyes never drifted. They measured, calculated, understood. At 34, Leah was older than most of the candidates assembled before her. She'd been a combat sniper in Iraq, operating in streets where every window could conceal a muzzle and every shadow could mean goodbye. Her call sign back then, Phantom 6, meant nothing to the young men now shifting on the gravel dot to them. She was just another Army sergeant with a clipboard and a rifle. The tattoo drew more attention than her rank. Tight black numbers, aligned neatly at the base of her neck. No dates, no names, no explanation. When the breeze lifted her hood, the digits flashed briefly like a code no one bothered to decipher. "Here she comes again," Staff Sergeant Reed Lawson muttered, elbowing the Ranger candidate beside him. Lawson was younger, tall, radiating the easy confidence of someone who'd never been truly humbled. "Our mystery map." The candidate snorted. "Maybe it's her mess hall address," Lawson added with a grin. Not malicious, just careless. To him, it was harmless range banter. He'd never known real silence. From a low rise overlooking the firing line, Commander Cole Harrison observed with faint amusement. Navy SEAL, early 40s, built like stacked granite beneath his tan blouse. He'd arrived 2 nights earlier to oversee a joint sniper evaluation between SEAL candidates and the Army's best. He'd expected a hardened master sergeant or a grizzled warrant officer. Instead, he'd been introduced to Sergeant Leah Monroe, an Army sergeant running SEAL, evaluation week. He hadn't voiced his doubts, but they lingered, irritating as grit beneath a contact lens. Down on the gravel, Monroe moved along the line with deliberate steps, checking rests, scopes, magazines. Her gloved hands brushed dust from bipods, adjusted legs with swift, practiced motions. She wasted no words. Errors were corrected silently. Success earned no praise. Sergeant Harrison called from the glassed-in tower. "Status." She glanced up briefly, the brim of her cap shadowing her face. "Targets set. Winds shifting left to right, 8 miles an hour." "They've been briefed." Her voice was calm, steady. It didn't need volume to command attention. Harrison nodded more assessment than approval. Near the center of the line, young trainee fumbled his magazine. His hands trembled just enough for rounds to rattle against metal. Monroe watched from a few feet away, arms folded. She could have stepped in earlier, but she waited. Let him feel the pressure. Not long enough to panic, his first 3 shots kicked dust far from the steel. Snickers rippled. "If he shoots any wider," Lawson said loudly, "he'll hit the parking lot." Monroe approached, boots crunching over spent casings. She ignored Lawson entirely. Kneeling beside the trainee, she pressed one knee into the dirt near his elbow. Grip, breath, trigger. No lecture. She adjusted his hand by millimeters, rolled his shoulder forward, placed 2 fingers lightly against his ribs. Breathe with these. Don't fight it. Swallowed, nodded, realigned. The noise faded. His world narrowed to breath and pressure. He squeezed, the shot cracked clean. Sharp, a heartbeat later, steel rang clear. Silence followed. The kind that arrives when expectations collapse. Fluke, someone muttered. Even a broken watch, another said. Lawson laughed, but it sounded thinner. Asterisk. Monroe stood and moved on without comment. From the tower, Harrison leaned forward, adjusting his scope. He followed Monroe as she moved small corrections, precise taps, subtle adjustments, and every time, results improved. Interesting, he murmured. Captain Mark Vance stood behind him, arms crossed. Harrison had noticed how Vance had greeted Monroe earlier, not formally, but with something quieter. Respect. You know her? Harrison asked. Vance's jaw tightened briefly. Long enough? She knows what she's doing. It wasn't evasive. It was protective. Lawson, meanwhile, couldn't resist. As Monroe passed behind his firing point, he raised his voice. Hey, Sergeant. That tattoo ever point somewhere interesting? Or just decoration? Laughter followed. Monroe didn't slow. The only sign she'd heard them was a brief lift of her hand, fingers brushing the numbers on her neck, as if confirming they were still there. Captain. Vance stiffened but said nothing. The afternoon rolled on. Shots cracked. Targets rang or didn't. Orders echoed. Laughter rose and fell. Through it all, Monroe remained constant. Calm without softness. Authority without noise. Most saw an instructor doing her job. They didn't see how her eyes tracked every flag, every shimmer of heat, every subtle warning the environment. Offered, they didn't know those coordinates weren't a joke, but the last thing she had left of someone she loved, they didn't. Know her call sign. Not yet, as the sun dipped low. Copper light flooded the range. Heat shimmer blurred the tree line. Harrison folded his arms beneath the tower. You can observe from above, Sergeant. Let the men run the line. It wasn't a suggestion. Yes. Sir Monroe replied and climbed the narrow steps. From the deck, she saw everything. She raised her binoculars and spoke calmly over the radio. Shooter 3, 1 click left. Shooter 6, hold half mil high. No one answered. Rifles thundered. Targets stayed silent. We've got it, Harrison said lightly. Just keep watching. She keyed her mic again. Winds building. Read your flags. Mirage, pulling left. Silence by sunset. Not one solid hit rang. Lawson slammed his rifle down. Maybe next time we let the tattoo girls shoot? Laughter broke forced, relieving embarrassment. Monroe exhaled slowly. She descended the tower, crossed the gravel, and knelt beside Lawson's rifle. Checked the chamber-sighted one. Squeeze Steel sang half a mile away. The sound echoed across the range. Monroe stood, returned the rifle gently, met Lawson's eyes once steady. Unreadable, then walked away. Lucky shot, Harrison muttered. Wind doesn't do luck. Sir, she replied without breaking stride. That night, targets rang steadily, not from chance, but from correction. No one said it aloud. Later in the mess tent, laughter returned in till an image flashed across the wall. A woman's sniper in rubble. Scarred jaw. Familiar eyes for a heartbeat. Silence. Then the slide changed. Monroe walked out into the night. Thunder rolled over Fort Bragg like distant artillery. By morning, the rumors had changed tone. Curiosity replaced mockery. When Captain Vance saluted her in full view of the trainees, the shift became permanent. Some people earn respect differently, and those coordinates, they marked a grave. Phantom 6 was no myth. She'd just never needed anyone to know. Some stories are never told because carrying them once is already enough. That night, As the wind whispered through the compound and the last echoes of the storm faded away, the light in Monroe's quarters remained on long after the others had gone dark. Inside, she sat alone at her desk, a folded photograph resting in her hand. Two soldiers stood side by side in desert sand, smiling beneath sun-bleached uniforms. One was her. The other was Ethan. Her thumb traced the ground beneath their boots in the photo, where faint numbers had once been written. The same coordinates now etched into her skin. Outside whispers became questions. Questions became understanding. And understanding slowly turned into quiet respect. No one mocked the tattoo anymore. They only wondered what it meant, who the woman they had laughed at truly was. The storm returned the next day like it hadn't finished its work. Dark clouds stacked over the tree line, the air thick and charged. On the schedule, the final block of training remained untouched. Black ink live fire stress simulation. The last event of the week. Harrison considered calling it off. He stood at the range's edge, studying the sky, feeling the low vibration of thunder through his boots. Then he checked his watch, glanced at the candidates already geared up and focused, and shook his head. "We run it," he said. "Weather is weather. Combat doesn't reschedule." Monroe was already moving along the line, checking ear and eye protection, inspecting rifles. Her voice carried evenly through the wind. "Confirm safety. Stay in your assigned lanes. No crossfire. If you lose sight, you stop." The simulation was designed to mimic chaos without crossing into recklessness. Moving targets, pop-up silhouettes, smoke pots, recorded gunfire and shouted commands, blasting through loudspeakers meant to rattle nerves and expose who could still think when adrenaline spiked. Thunder rolled closer. Monroe lifted her gaze, reading the sky the way she read wind flags. She approached Harrison. "We can shorten the run, sir," she said quietly. "Hit the key drills and pull them back before it worsens." He heard concern and mistook it for caution. "They're training for special operations," he replied. "They can handle noise from above." Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. "Understood." The drill began. Smoke rolled across the range as shooters advanced through their lanes. Loudspeakers erupted with simulated chaos. Rain started as a fine mist, turning dirt into slick mud beneath their boots. At first, it worked. Steel rang. Instructors called corrections. Monroe stayed near the center, headset on, eyes tracking everything at once. Then lightning struck. The flash turned the world white. Thunder followed, instantly violent, chest-rattling. One trainee froze mid-step. His mind didn't hear thunder. It heard something else entirely. His rifle dipped. His eyes went empty. He collapsed to his knees, hands clamped over his helmet, gasping. "Incoming. Incoming." Radios exploded with overlapping voices. Someone shouted that a shooter was down. Another demanded to know who fired out of lane. Harrison barked orders into his headset, trying to regain control, but the storm didn't care. Wind drove rain sideways. Another lightning strike cracked overhead. A trainee flinched, muzzle swinging wide. An instructor grabbed the barrel, yelling for a ceasefire half the line didn't hear. The simulation tipped toward something real. Monroe saw it all at once, the loss of focus, tightening fingers, instructors stretched thin. Something inside her settled. She stepped forward into the rain and keyed her mic. "All stations, this is Monroe. Ceasefire. Repeat, ceasefire. Safety on, muzzles down. Instructors confirm." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Authority carried it. Lane by lane, confirmations came in. Gunfire sputtered, then stopped. The speakers still screamed chaos, but her voice cut through clean and sharp. "Qualman to lane 5, she added, already moving. "All others hold position. Do not move without an instructor." Harrison turned toward her. He had never heard her speak like that before. This wasn't an instructor managing a range. This was someone who had commanded real fire beneath worse skies. She reached the panicked trainee first, dropping to one knee beside him. "You're at Fort Bragg," she said calmly. "You're in training." There is no incoming. Look at me. She took his wrist. Count my fingers. 1 breath each. In, out. Hear the rain. Smell the dirt. That's now. You're here. Gradually, his breathing slowed. His eyes focused. When the corpsman arrived, she helped transfer him, then stood and scanned the line again. All lanes safe. Weapons clear. Copy, she replied. Guide shooters off the line. Range is cold. No one questioned her authority. Harrison watched in silence. This was what Vance had meant. This was why he'd saluted her. As trainees moved toward cover, Monroe checked the roster. 1 name was missing. Where's Carter? He was lane 8, an instructor said. She scanned again. He's not here. Rain intensified, visibility collapsing beyond the berms. He left position, she said. Flat, certain. I'll send a team, Harrison began. By the time they're assembled, he could be at the tree line. She replied. Combat history plus lightning plus live fire bad mix. I know how that hits. E. Hesitated, then nodded. You take a radio. She secured her hood and stepped back into the storm. From beneath the tower awning, Harrison watched her disappear into sheets of rain. Moving low and fast, instinct guiding every step. At the second berm, she found Carter. Huddled against the earth, helmet off, hands over his ears, she approached slowly, visible, calm. Carter, she called. It's Sergeant Monroe. You're at Bragg. Look at me. He blinked, struggling to focus. There's no fire, just rain. Feel it. That's now. The rest is memory. She grabbed his harness and pulled him up. He was dead weight at first, then slowly began to move. Together, they crossed the field. Mud soaked her uniform. Rain ran down her sleeves and past the coordinates carved into her skin. From the tower, Harrison saw only 2 figures in the storm, one refusing to let the other fall. By the time they reached cover, Carter's breathing had steadied. No one clapped. No one joked. They just watched. Later in the gear room, wet vests hung from hooks. Rifles were laid out to dry. The storm drummed steadily overhead. Monroe peeled off her soaked top. Her undershirt clung dark to her skin. She rolled up a sleeve to wring out water. That's when Lawson saw the scars. Pale, uneven lines along her forearm. Shrapnel scars. He swallowed those. That's shrapnel, isn't it? She glanced once. Old business. Rifle. Lawson. Focus. The swagger never returned to him. Respect settled quietly through the room. 2 days later, the sky cleared as if the storm had never existed. It was the final day of sniper evaluation week. Monroe stood in the tower. Range is hot. Begin first sequence. Admiral James Porter stood near the vehicles, watching silently. When Harrison's rifle jammed, Monroe was already moving. She cleared it, took the shot. Steel rang. Porter froze. Phantom 6. Silence swallowed the range. You held the tunnels in Fallujah, Porter said. Monroe lowered the rifle. No applause, no music. Just understanding. Porter saluted. Then Harrison. Then everyone else. The tattoo was no longer a mystery. That evening, under a quiet sky, Monroe touched the coordinates at her neck. They weren't grief anymore. They were survival. Some marks aren't decoration. They're history, written on skin, carried in silence. Because real strength isn't loud. It's steady. And it endures long after the noise fades.